Hello guys, and welcome back to another video where we'll be building this cards list UI from UI Design Daily. But instead of these icons, I'm going to be using social media icons instead. Now, I had done a video about this before, but I actually lost my footage and I was going to give up on recording another one, but I felt like this is actually a very nice project, so I decided to record it again. I'm going to place a link in the description to my GitHub repository. This is my GitHub repository with all the links to the past components that I've built, and a link to the actual website, the hosting website, which is right here, and I opened it on another tab, and you can see I changed the UI design, I changed the user interface, and it looks much better now, much more appealing. So once you've done that, of course, if you have Sketch installed and you need the Sketch file, all you need to do is come and click this button right here, and it will download the Sketch file for you. Now, I'm not going to be doing that though. I think we can get started. All I have here is an empty folder called grid cards, and I'm going to be doing everything from scratch, and I'm going to create a file inside the folder called index.html and another file called style.css, like that. Now, in the index.html, I'm going to just generate a simple template using exclamation and tab, and I'm going to link my style sheet below here, and I'm going to say style.css, and for this I'm going to say, for the title, I'm going to say cards list UI design, like that. Okay, now if you take a look at this image, this is actually okay. This section right here is actually what we're going to be placing in a grid, because we're going to be using CSS grid. But for this, for the header right here, for the h1 right here, and for the input of type of search, this is just going to be two separate elements that I'm just going to place to text align center, and that's all we will need to do for those. So let me go ahead and say, let me create a div with the class of h1. Actually, no class at all. No, let me just give it a class of title to be safe. And I'm going to say for the h1 says a collected list of free APIs. Actually, because we're not going to be using these images, I'm just going to create my own title, and I'm going to say a list of the best social media websites on the internet, like that. And I'm going to say, let me place an input with the type of search, like that, and I'm going to say a placeholder will be search social media websites, like that. And that will be done for both of these. Next, we can go ahead and start creating this grid, and I'm going to say I want a div with a class of grid, like that. And I'm going to say, let me place a h4 and an h4 saying featured social media websites, like that. Now, inside this grid, actually, what did I do here? This is grid. If I try to display this as grid, it will also display, if I try to display this as grid, it will also display the h4 as a separate grid, and I don't want that to happen. So what I can do is say give another class inside the class of grid, and I will say, let me give this a class of grid dash cards, like that. And inside the grid dash cards, actually I need font awesome here, so let me just say font awesome, if I can spell it. And then what I'll need is, first of all, the icon. Okay, I'm going to need the icon, and I'm going to need the h. I'm going to say this is an h3. Let me just say this structure first of all. Okay, I'm going to need an icon of class FAB and FA-Facebook just to start us off, and I'm going to say an h3 saying Facebook, like that. And then once I've done that, actually you can see that these icons are kind of in a separate column, separate from this. So what I'm going to do is place this inside a div, place the icon inside a div, like that. and then the rest of these other column I'm going to place inside a separate grid. Alright, so let's just go ahead and do that, and I'm going to say grab this h3 and I want to place it inside a div, and then I want a class of small inside the div saying Facebook. Is that correct? Let me put another paragraph at the bottom and just say Lorem10, like that. That will give us a basic structure for how the grids will look. And let me just get font awesome first of all from cdnjs.com, and I want font awesome. Grab the link tag right there and place it below, save that and comment this and open this with live server. Let's see how it looks. Okay, we can see the Facebook icon is right there. Okay, so next we can do is actually now copy this grid, paste it about how many times? 9 times. Okay, so we can copy this grid, not this grid but this. Oh my goodness, this structure is so, let me see how this structure is. This is the main grid that we're going to be styling. Okay, so I'm going to need to place this inside a div with a class of, let me just say a class of grid dash inner, like that, or grid cards inner, like that. And then you can grab this and copy it 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. So those are 9 divs. Okay, those are 9, and this is the first one saying Facebook. This I'm going to need this to say Twitter, and then I'm going to need this to say Instagram. I'm going to need this to say YouTube, and then TikTok, and then what else? Snapchat. What other social media is there? Telegram. Let's see, WhatsApp, and the final one should be I can't think of the final one. Okay, the final one I'm just going to say Pinterest, like that. And once you save that, you can see they all appear like that. They all appear. Okay, so after we've done that, we can now move to our style CSS. Did I link it? Okay, I linked it, and I'll say let me grab the all select and say margin of 0, padding of 0, and box sizing of border box, like that. Say that. Okay, and then you can say that for the title, I want the title to text align center. This will move this like that to the center, and I want the title h1 to have a font size of 26 pixels with a width of 300 pixels and a margin of auto so that it centers, and I want padding on the bottom of 30 pixels. And then for the title input, let me just save this so that you see what happens. Oh, this is so small. Let's do small, 600. Okay, yeah. And let me just add some padding on the title, the padding of about 50 pixels on the top and bottom, 0 on the left and right, that it pushes down a bit. Next, we're going to style this input, and for the input, I'm going to say it have a padding of 12 pixels, a border of none. Okay, no, we actually need the border, so 2 pixels solid, and 333, which is a light gray, not light gray but a dark gray. And I want to say for the font family, let me say inherit. I'm going to add a font family in a moment. And then for the font weight, I'm going to say 700. And then what else do I need? A border radius. Okay, I'm going to add a radius of 4 pixels, like that. Let me just add a font family on the body, and I'm going to say a font family of the React font family, like that. Looks much better. Looks much better, like that. Next, we are actually going to now target these divs. So I can say the first div that I want is actually the grid. Is this the grid? That's the one that goes all the way to the end, right? Okay. And then the grid cards, this is the one that has what was I doing really? Grid cards is the one that has okay. So let me say the class of grid. For the class of grid, I want the h3 and say, is it really an h3 or h4? Class of h4. Actually, I first want to limit this, so let me have a max width of 1200 pixels and a margin of auto, margin of auto, like that, so that it centers. And then I actually now want to display these as grids, so these the inner classes. So I want to say for the grid cards, I want the grid cards to display as grid. So I'm just going to say grid dash cards. I want to display grid with grid template columns repeating 3 and 1 fraction on each, like that. And you can see they're already aligned. Now I want to add a grid gap so that these can separate. Okay, so I'm going to say a grid gap of about 40 pixels, like that. And let me also add a background color for them. Actually, let me add a background color on the body. Let me say background color of let me just make this a bit darker, like a dark theme sort. Let me say the color should be white, like that. That looks much better. And then we can say for the grids, let me say for the grids, for the divs, I mean, I want to target this, I want to target the divs, and I want the divs to have a background color of, let's see, this, that one's a dark blue, so I want this to be about somewhere there. Okay, and then I can add padding on the divs. Let me add padding of 20 pixels in the divs. That's too much. Let me say 10 pixels, like that. Let me also add a border radius on the divs, and I want a border radius of 5 pixels, like that. And they are looking smarter. Let me also add this. Let me grab this and add some padding on the bottom, so it's inside the grid. And it's an h4. Okay, so I'm going to say for the grid, I want the h4 and I want the padding on the bottom to be 20 pixels, like that. That looks much better. Now let me just fix something here. You can see that for these header tags, I want this to be capital letters, of course, as well as the small tags. So let me just confirm where this is. It's in this is an h3 and a small tag. Okay, so I can say grab this, I want the h3 and I want the small tag, and I want text transform to be capitalized, like that, and they're looking much better. Now if you look at this image, you can see that the icons are a bit bigger and they're aligned together with the words, like that. So let me just do that, and I can do that by saying I can go inside this grid cards inner and displaying it as flex. So I can say grid cards dash inner, like that, and I can display it as flex, and you notice that they now go they're now aligned like that, and it looks much better. Now the next thing I have to do is actually add some padding on the paragraphs of these, so that they push down a bit. And I'll say for the grid cards inner, I want the paragraph, and I want the padding on the top of the paragraph to be 10 pixels. You see they push down a bit, and let me increase the font size of the icons, and I can do that by saying this grid cards inner. I want the icons, and I want the font size of the icons to be 24 pixels, not 224. And you see that looks much better. That looks much better. And just like that will be done with the desktop site, and you can begin to scale it down. Now scaling down is going to be easy. I say that, but I'm not quite sure. So what I'm going to do is actually reduce the max width of the container, and then I'm going to reduce the grid columns here to 2. So I can do that by saying a max for a media with a max width of, let me check this again, this is about what, 1200 pixels. Of 1200 pixels, I want the container to have a max width of 1000 pixels, and I want, I want this, copy this down, paste right there, but I don't need this, and I don't need this. I want this to reduce to, actually, you know what, I think 3 will still work for here. Let me just check how it is. Really? It won't work. 2 of them. They will span 2 of them like that. That's too much for 2. That's too much for 2. So what I'm going to do is add a margin on the container instead. And instead of adding, okay, let me just add it right there. I'm going to say margin of 0 on the top and bottom, and 20 pixels on the left and right. That doesn't work. 50 pixels with left and right. Oops, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. That doesn't work. Why don't you work? Oh, you know why it doesn't work? It's because I don't have a class of container. I'm so used to having a class of container, so this should be class of grid. And actually, once I do that, let me, oh, that's why it wasn't working, because I was trying to style a class that I don't have in my HTML. So once I do that, you can see it scales down nicely, and I want to add a margin of 0 on top and bottom and 20 pixels left and right, just so it can always have a margin of 20 pixels no matter what device width, like that. And you can see once it reaches about let me say 850 pixels, it's starting to look cramped a bit. So I'm going to just fix that. Let me also add some padding on the bottom of this grid. Let me say padding bottom of 50 pixels, so that I can scroll down a bit and I can see the bottom of these cards. Okay. So next I want to add a media query for a max width of about 850 pixels, and I want the grid, actually I want both of these. I want the grid to have a max width of 700 pixels, and we can remove this because we already applied it up here, and I want this to reduce to 2 columns, and we can reduce that and see that it's looking much better. But I don't want this space right here, so I can do this. I can come here and say place items to the center. Place items to the center. Oops, that doesn't work. Why doesn't that work? Oh, okay, it's fine, it's fine. I don't need to do that. I don't need to do this. It's fine because you see, the reason why it does this is because it's as if like it's detecting some kind of grid here. Let me just check this. Where is this grid? I can't even find it. Anyways, it's not really that much of an issue. Now the next media query that I would like to add is, if you remember, I limited this header to about, what was it, the title I want to about 600 pixels. So once it gets to below 600 pixels, I want the title to be auto. So media max width of 600 pixels. I want the title h1 to have a width of auto. If you don't do this, okay, if you don't do this, you'll notice that when it gets to about 600 pixels, it will create a horizontal scroll bar down here. You guys didn't see that, but I was trying to point it for you to to show you. It will create a horizontal scroll bar that the reason why is because this is going outside of the defined width, you know. That's why it creates that horizontal scroll bar on mobile phones. So you always have to remember that. You always have to remember where you placed your limits. Okay. And the next thing that I would like to limit at 600 pixels is now this should span one column each. So I'm going to grab this, place it here, and I'm going to say this should span, okay, should just be one FR, like that. And you can see it's looking very nice, very nice. It looks much better, it looks colorful a bit, you know. And is there anything else I need to change? Max of 600 pixels, and let me just say for the grid, it have a max width of does it have an auto option right here? Doesn't have an auto option, so I don't think this matters. Okay, and just like that, guys, we have created a grid card. You can see it goes down up to about, this is what, 230 pixels, and it's still looking, well, good enough. And you can see that once it scales up very nicely, and it looks marvelous. So that's it, guys, for this video. I hope you like this simple tutorial about using CSS grid as well as Flexbox just for this. I hope you liked it, I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did enjoy the video, please like the video and please share, and remember to subscribe and ring the bell to always be updated on new content that I upload, and I'll see you in the next video.